What if I told you that the next 7 nights could completely shift the direction of your life? Not next year, not someday, not when everything is perfect, but starting tonight. Because sometimes God is not waiting on your situation to change. He's waiting on one small act of obedience. For 7 nights in a row, if you do this one intentional thing before you sleep, you will begin to notice something shift. Your peace will increase. Your clarity will grow. Doors will begin to open. And the story you thought was over will start being rewritten. There is something about the night that makes everything louder. During the day, you're busy. You're distracted. You're moving. But at night, when the lights go off and the room gets quiet, your thoughts start talking. Regrets replay. Fear gets bold. Doubt grows teeth. And the battles you ignored all day suddenly stand at the edge of your bed. The night is not just a time on the clock. It's a battlefield. It's where anxiety tries to convince you that nothing will change. It's where the enemy whispers, "You're behind. You missed your chance. This is how your story ends." It's where overthinking steals your peace and exhaustion drains your hope. If you don't take authority over your nights will take authority over you. And here's the truth most people don't realize. Many destinies are delayed not because of what happens during the day, but because of what dominates the night. When you go to bed stressed, fearful, angry, and overwhelmed, you are planting seeds in your spirit, and seeds planted consistently will grow. If fear is planted nightly, anxiety grows. If hopelessness is rehearsed nightly, discouragement multiplies. But what if, instead of letting the night control you, you decided to control the atmosphere of your night? What if you turned your bedroom into sacred ground? For the next 7 nights, don't just fall into sleep. Enter it intentionally. Before your head touches the pillow, pause, breathe, and recognize that this moment, this quiet, unseen, ordinary moment has power, because night can either be a place of torment or a place of transformation. You get to choose. Instead of replaying what went wrong, replay what God has already done. Instead of magnifying what's missing, magnify what's present. And that's where gratitude changes everything. Gratitude is not just being polite to God. It is spiritual positioning. When you thank God before you see the breakthrough, you activate trust. And trust invites divine movement. For 7 nights in a row, before you sleep, speak 3 specific thank yous out loud, not general ones. Specific ones. God, thank you for protecting me today. Thank you for the strength to get through that conversation. Thank you for the roof over my head. Thank you for the lesson inside that disappointment. When you do this, something shifts internally. Gratitude pulls your focus away from what's lacking and anchors it in what's working. And what you focus on expands. You may not see a miracle immediately. You may not wake up on day 2 with fireworks in the sky. But something deeper begins to rearrange inside you. Your heart softens. Your breathing slows. Your spirit settles. Peace begins to replace pressure. And here's the powerful truth. God moves where He is welcomed. Complaining every night, before you close your eyes, there is something you carry into tomorrow. It might be a worry that's been sitting on your chest all day. A conversation you keep replaying. A bill you don't know how to pay. A diagnosis you're afraid to fully accept. A dream that feels like it's slipping through your fingers. And most people do this without realizing it. They take all of that weight to bed with them. They lie down physically, but mentally, they're still fighting. They close their eyes, but their spirit is still gripping control. If you want your story to change, something has to shift in those quiet moments before sleep. For the next 7 nights, I want you to practice something powerful. Surrender one specific worry before you go to bed. Not in a vague way, not in a rushed way. Intentionally. Name it. Say it out loud if you can. God, I give you my financial stress. God, I give you this relationship. God, I give you my fear about the future. Because here's the truth. You were never designed to carry everything. When you try to control what only God can handle, you don't gain power. You gain anxiety. Control feels safe, but it's exhausting. Surrender feels risky, but it brings peace. When you release something into God's hands, you are making a declaration of trust. You are saying, I believe you are working even when I cannot see it. And that shift from gripping to releasing changes your atmosphere. Miracles are not forced. They are invited, and they are invited into spaces where trust lives. You may not see immediate fireworks. You may not wake up to an instant solution, but something subtle begins to happen. Your breathing slows. Your heart steadies. Your mind quiets. Peace replaces panic, and peace is not weakness. Peace is evidence that you've handed the battle to someone stronger. Now imagine doing that for 7 nights in a row. 7 nights of intentionally surrendering something that has been draining you. By the end of that week, you will feel lighter. Not because the problem disappeared overnight, but because you stopped carrying it alone. And when your spirit is no longer consumed by fear, you can finally hear direction. You can finally sense opportunity. You can finally recognize the doors opening around you. But surrender alone is not enough. After you release what you cannot control, you must begin to speak what you believe God is building. Your words are not small. Your words shape your expectation. Too many people rehearse their pain before bed. They replay failure. They predict more disappointment. They fall asleep speaking defeat over their own future. And then they wonder why they wake up discouraged. For the next 7 nights, I want you to do something different. After you surrender your worry, declare your future. Not based on what you see, not based on how you feel, but based on faith. Say, I am becoming stronger. Say, God is aligning the right opportunities. Say, this season is shaping me, not breaking me. Say, my story is not over. When you speak your future out loud, you train your mind to expect movement. Heaven responds to faith-filled language. You are not lying to yourself, you are aligning yourself. Because who you are becoming is more important than what you are currently facing. And here's what happens when you consistently declare your future. Before sleep, your subconscious begins to work in agreement with your faith. Instead of feeding fear, you are feeding vision. Instead of reinforcing doubt, you are reinforcing destiny. Imagine closing your eyes each night with these 2 powerful acts, hands open, because you've surrendered the burden. Voice strong, because you've declared the promise. That combination changes things. It changes how you rest. It changes how you wake up. It changes how you walk into the next day. By night 3, you'll feel a shift in your posture. By night 5, you'll notice your thoughts are less chaotic. By night 7, you will realize something profound. Your story already feels different. Not because everything around you transformed instantly, but because you did. You stopped trying to be your own savior. You stopped speaking defeat over your destiny. You stopped sleeping with anxiety as your companion. Instead, you surrendered and you declared. And when a person consistently releases control to God and speaks faith over their future, their entire direction begins to shift. The next 7 nights are not about ritual. They are about alignment. Release what is heavy. Speak what is hopeful. Rest in trust. And watch how your story begins to move in a new direction, not by accident, but by faith. Every night, before you sleep, there is a choice you make. whether you realize it or not. You can choose to go to bed holding on to grudges, anger, or resentment. You can replay the hurts of the day, the words that cut deep, the mistakes that still haunt you. Or you can release them. Unforgiveness is heavy. It binds your spirit. It steals your peace. It lingers in the quiet moments when your body is still, whispering lies that you are stuck, that your life will never move forward, that your prayers are unanswered because someone else wronged you. But here's the truth: when you release that weight, you don't just free the other person, you free yourself. You open your own heart to healing. You create space for God to work in ways that were blocked before. Imagine closing your eyes tonight and saying, "I forgive this person. I release this anger. I let go of this bitterness." Even if it's hard, even if your heart resists, even if it's someone who doesn't deserve it. Forgiveness is not about them. It's about your story. It's about reclaiming your peace. Each night, choose one resentment to release. Let it go, even if it's small. Over 7 nights, the accumulation of these acts of forgiveness will create a momentum that begins to shift your entire spiritual and emotional landscape. What felt impossible to move before now begins to feel lighter. Doors that were closed start to open. The heaviness you carried begins to lift, and you realize that God was waiting for this release to intervene in your life. Now, as you forgive and release, turn your attention to what you allow into your mind before sleep. What you feed your thoughts at night will shape your dreams, your expectations, and the energy you carry into the next day. Every message, every show, every conversation that enters your mind in the quiet moments before rest matters more than you realize. Guard what you consume. The last images, words, or ideas you allow into your mind before sleep will imprint on your subconscious. If you scroll through fear, despair, or conflict, your spirit will absorb it. If you replay the mistakes of the day or dwell on negative news, your soul becomes unsettled. But if you intentionally choose what nourishes your spirit, what inspires hope, and what aligns with faith, your subconscious begins to work in harmony with God's promises instead of against them. For the next 7 nights, be deliberate. Before your head hits the pillow, choose something that strengthens your spirit. Read a scripture. Speak a prayer. Listen to something uplifting. Fill your mind with reminders of God's faithfulness. Replace the last words you hear with truth, not fear. You might think, "It's just a few minutes before sleep. Does it really matter?" Yes, it matters more than you can imagine. Nighttime is when the seeds of tomorrow are sown. When you guard your heart and mind during these moments, you prepare the soil for blessings to grow. When you choose forgiveness, you clear the weeds of bitterness. When you choose encouragement and truth, you water the seeds of faith and expectation. By the end of 7 nights, you'll notice a subtle transformation. Your rest will be deeper. Your mornings will feel lighter. Your perspective will shift. The anxieties that used to keep you tossing and turning will lose their grip. You will find yourself waking up with clarity, hope, and anticipation for what God is about to do. This is not a coincidence. God works behind the scenes, but He waits for your participation. He waits for you to release the chains that keep you from moving forward. He waits for you to protect your mind and heart so that He can pour His blessings into the spaces you've prepared. The simple acts of forgiving and guarding your mind are not small. They are spiritual disciplines that set in motion divine movement. Over 7 nights, as you release resentment and feed your mind with faith-filled thoughts, your story begins to change. What once felt like a dead end now becomes a doorway. What once felt like disappointment becomes preparation. What once felt heavy becomes light. You are creating an environment for miracles, You are laying down the spiritual foundation for transformation. Your nights, once filled with unrest and worry, are becoming a sanctuary for God's work. And when He begins to move, you will look back and realize that these small, intentional acts were the turning point. So tonight, before sleep, choose forgiveness. Let go of what no longer serves you, and protect what enters your mind. Allow inspiration, faith, and truth to fill the last moments before you drift off. Do this for 7 nights, and watch how God starts to reshape your story. Peace will replace the burdens you once carried. Joy will take root in places that were once heavy, and your life will begin to align with the purpose and destiny God has always had for you. Every night, before you close your eyes, there is a moment of quiet that holds more power than you can see. In that moment, your mind begins to replay the day's events. Your heart begins to process the emotions you carried, and your spirit begins to settle into whatever narrative you allow. What you imagine, what you focus on, and what you choose to dwell on in those quiet hours can determine the trajectory of your tomorrow. For 7 nights, I want you to imagine something extraordinary. I want you to see God working on your behalf, even when you cannot see it with your natural eyes. Visualize doors opening where there seem to be walls. Picture solutions forming before you even ask. See healing flowing where there was once pain. Picture favor manifesting in places where there was struggle. These are not fantasies. They are acts of faith. They are declarations that God's plan is greater than your current circumstances. When you allow your mind to envision God at work, behind the scenes, you are creating an expectation that aligns with His promises. Faith is not passive. It is active, dynamic, and intentional. One of the most powerful forms of faith is the ability to see with your spiritual eyes what your natural eyes cannot yet perceive. When you visualize breakthrough, you are training your spirit to recognize possibility. You are positioning your heart to believe before you receive. Your subconscious begins to operate in agreement with hope instead of fear. Your thoughts, your words, and even your actions the following day begin to reflect the vision you held the night before. But vision alone is not enough. It must be coupled with persistence, with deliberate, consistent action. Small acts, repeated faithfully, become powerful. One night of visualization, one night of focused prayer, one night of intentional reflection may not feel significant. It may even feel fruitless. But when you repeat this for 7 nights, something extraordinary begins to emerge. Consistency builds momentum. Momentum builds expectation. And expectation, grounded in faith, becomes the soil in which miracles grow. The ordinary act of showing up night after night, of imagining God's work in your life, of declaring your faith aloud, compounds in ways that are unseen but undeniable. By the end of 7 nights, you will begin to see evidence of this spiritual alignment manifesting in your reality. By night 3, you may notice subtle changes. A sense of calm replaces restlessness. A clarity begins to emerge where confusion once dominated. By night 5, doors begin to open that you didn't even know were closed. Connections, insights, and opportunities start to align. By night 7, your spirit begins to understand that God has been moving all along. You just needed to participate with consistent faith. This is the principle of alignment. Your spirit, your mind, and your actions are working together in harmony with God's plan. When you consciously choose what to imagine, what to speak, and how to act in those quiet moments before sleep, you create an environment in which divine intervention is inevitable. You are no longer a passive participant in your story. You are a co-creator with the one who holds all things in His hands. Imagine this: if you consistently release what you cannot control, If you surrender your worries, forgive those who have wronged you, and protect your mind from negativity, and then pair that with visualization and intentional declarations of faith, you are creating a cycle of spiritual momentum. Each night feeds the next. Each small act compounds. By the seventh night, what once felt impossible begins to feel inevitable. What once felt heavy becomes light. What once seemed stuck now starts to move. Consistency is not about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about showing up, even when you feel tired, even when doubt whispers, even when results are not immediate. Faith grows in repetition. Trust grows in patience. And miracles grow in the space where faith meets consistent action. Your nights are far from ordinary. They are the hidden foundation of your days. They are the quiet laboratory where destiny is shaped. What you practice, what you imagine, and what you speak in these moments can shift the course of your life. By choosing to align yourself spiritually each night, you create a rhythm that sets the stage for transformation. Do this for 7 nights. Visualize God at work in your life. See the doors opening, the chains breaking, the answers arriving. Speak truth over yourself and your future. Be consistent. Repeat your prayers. Repeat your declarations. Repeat the vision in your mind. Let your spirit, your mind, and your heart work in harmony with God's promises. By the 7th night, you will notice profound changes. You will not be the same person you were on the first night. Your thoughts will be sharper. Your heart will be lighter. Your faith will be stronger. You will begin to recognize God's fingerprints in areas of your life that once felt hopeless or stagnant. The story you believed was stuck will begin to move. The breakthrough you prayed for will begin to manifest. The nights you once feared or considered ordinary will become the most powerful moments of preparation you have ever experienced. When you look back, you will realize that the consistent acts of faith, visualization, and persistence over these 7 nights were not just habits. They were the keys that unlocked your transformation. Now, I want you to understand the spiritual power behind repetition. Small, faithful actions create momentum. A single night of prayer may plant a seed, but 7 nights of focused prayer, visualization, and declaration waters that seed until it grows. Repetition trains your heart, aligns your mind, and positions your spirit to receive. It rewires your thinking, shifts your expectations, and prepares you for the blessings that are already on the way. Imagine going to bed each night with your hands open, having surrendered all your burdens. Imagine speaking your future with faith and expectation. Imagine visualizing God's work in every area of your life. The combination of surrender, declaration, and vision sets a spiritual rhythm that nothing can stop. Over 7 nights, you will feel your posture change, not just physically, but spiritually. The heaviness that once weighed on you will begin to lift. Your thoughts will become calmer, more focused, more aligned with God's promises. Your heart will settle, and you will start to notice opportunities, connections, and solutions you hadn't seen before. What once felt impossible will begin to feel inevitable. This is how transformation begins, not through chance, not through luck, not through sudden events, but through consistent, intentional alignment with God's principles. Each night is a spiritual investment. Each act of visualization, each declaration of faith, each intentional thought, and each moment of persistence is a deposit into the account of your destiny. By night 7, you will begin to reap the harvest of these unseen, faithful actions. Remember, this is not about ritual or routine. It is about alignment. Alignment of your thoughts, your words, and your spirit with the will and promises of God. Alignment of your imagination with His work. Alignment of your persistence with His timing. By participating faithfully in these 7 nights, you create the conditions for miracles, breakthroughs, and divine movement. Do this. 7 nights. Surrender, declare, visualize, repeat, and watch what God begins to do. Doors that were closed will open. Solutions that were hidden will reveal themselves. Healing that seemed delayed will arrive. Peace that felt out of reach will settle in. Favor that was distant will draw near. The story you have been praying for is waiting for your consistency, your faith, and your vision to unlock it. By the 7th night, you will not just feel a shift. You will see it. You will live it. Your story will begin to change. And what began as 7 nights of intentional faith will become the foundation for a lifetime of trust, alignment, and divine transformation. So tonight, and for the next 6 nights, choose to see God at work. Choose to imagine your breakthrough. Speak your faith over your future. Be consistent. Show up. Visualize. Declare. And let your nights become the sacred space where God begins to rewrite your story.